I'm John Sargent, and it's December 2021. We're in San Francisco at the Fairmont Hotel at the California Alarm Association.
I'm Charlie Darsh with the Security Museum.
Nathan Rousted from Wayne Alarm Systems.
And I'm Ralph Sevenor from Wayne Alarm Systems and the Security Museum. We're delighted to have you here. We've been collecting artifacts for over 25 years, and we saw the need to really put all the people together that have created such a great industry. A lot to learn in this. Thank you very much for attending, and we look forward to your comments in the future as well. Thank you.
I'm John Sargent. We're here with Matt Westphal today out in Moraga, California. And we're going to be talking about some of his experiences through the industry. I'd like to start even before we get into the world of the alarm business today. When you were younger, maybe high school age or something, did you have any particular thoughts about what you wanted to do, or did you know you were going to go into the family business?
John, I would say that I had those thoughts way before high school. I can remember my oldest memories were literally when I was like 4, 5, and 6. Running around the shop or the office, the corporate office at the time, with my dad on the weekends. And the corporate office was a cinder block building, not a building, more like a garage with 2 bays for cars, and then a little area you could put a pot of coffee, and then a cot there where my dad and uncle used to sleep. And we used to go down there on the weekends, and he would be doing his thing. This is back in 1971 or 72 or something.
Okay.
And he would do his thing on the weekend, and I just piddle around with batteries and making stuff and breaking stuff and, and stuff like that. So it kind of started there. That was my earliest memory of being in the business. And my grandfather would, come down and chit-chat, and he'd take us out to lunch or something like that.
Huh. And so this was Oakland?
Yeah, this was Oakland, right off of East 14th Street, which we still, Marin Way was the actual street. It was an alley, not on the main road, but it was an alley. We still have it today. Now it's full of just, stuff.
Yeah. So then you went to school. It was Piedmont, right?
Yeah, we grew up. I grew up in Piedmont, so it's just right up the hill from Oakland, downtown Oakland, the office.
Yeah. So then, and what were your thoughts? Getting into teenage. I know you had a life dealing with that, but did you know by that time you were going to be in this business?
It's a good question, John, and I think the answer really for me is yes, from a very early age, because our family was very business-centric, and my dad was always going to different classes and different schools and learning and working and just constantly, so around the dinner table, we had business discussions and meetings since I was a little kid. And throughout, elementary school, just kind of down at the shop, and then middle school, and then high school, it's like, meeting the people. And I used to, I met them all. At the time, my grandma was there, my grandfather, my cousins, and we'd have a company picnic every summer, and we used to love those. My grandma serving beer, and my dad flipping hot dogs, and myself and the kids and other employees' kids. There weren't too many employees at the time. Just running around. And I said, this is what I want to do. I like the people. I'm learning about business and about what this business is, and I really like it. So I started thinking that way in middle school, high school, and then in high school, I used to work. When I didn't have sports going on, every Tuesday and Thursday, I'd get home, and a service tech would pick me up at 3:30, and then I'd work till 6:30, that night in that territory, and then they'd drop me off, and then and I did that for a number of years.
When you were a teenager?
Yeah, when I was in high school. So, 14, 15, 16, 17.
Yeah. Were you getting paid? Do you recall?
I think I was getting paid. I think it was like $8 an hour, $6 an hour, something.
Okay.
But I was making a little bit of money, and I was just really just riding with the different service techs, learning about the business, and I did it in all the, a bunch of different territories around the Bay Area.
Okay.
I'm getting to know the people and getting to know the customers and the business. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I know that you also spent some time traveling. I know you've been in other parts around the world when you were young.
Yeah.
And was there a time there that you thought maybe I want to do something different?
No, because I went to graduated college, and then after college, I had or actually before that, during college, my dad would go on different different business trips, and sometimes I would tag along, and we could be like taking a family trip to Italy somewhere, and he goes, "Hey, there's an alarm company guy I just found out about in Italy. Let's just go spend a couple hours and go visit him." So we would do that, and it would be great because immediately there'd be a connection in whichever foreign country. And I went a few times with my dad, but then I did that specifically all throughout. I visited alarm companies in Egypt, Africa,
Wow.
Europe, South Africa, and a bunch of other places. So every time I would go on a trip with my wife or family, I would always carve out a few hours to meet with the local alarm company, and it was always very interesting. And it just progressed through college, and then after college, we had a family deal where you must work somewhere else for a minimum of 3 years just to get some other experience.
Yeah, well, let's talk a little bit about that, because I had heard that was part of the family and growing up. So did you have a choice of what you wanted to do going into another work line?
No, it was graduate college.
And that was first and foremost.
That's a minimum. You can't come in if you don't do that. So you did that. I went to SMU in Dallas, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
At the time when I went there, we were top 10 in the country in football, and then we got the death penalty, so that was the end of that. But I graduated in 1989 from SMU, and then after college I went to work for a company named Jack Nadell, and just selling, cold call selling, advertising and marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that for a number of years, a couple of years, and then I went to work for a real estate developer. And they were developing putting together mining claims and then developing lots in Breckenridge, Colorado. So I worked directly for the developer. And
how did you get these jobs?
Interviewed, applied,
Okay.
Just sought them out like anyone else would do. No friends or anything like that. They were just people that I talked to. And I always used to work hard at whatever I did. And because I enjoy working hard and playing hard and doing everything else. So I worked for the real estate developer for a while, and then basically my 3.5 years was about up, and in between then and starting at Bay, I had about 4 months, and at the time my wife was going to graduate school in Hawaii, so I flew over to Hawaii, and because I was going to start in the first Bay Alarm university class, the first one we've ever had.
Uh-huh.
So, and that wasn't starting until October, and I was done like in July or something. So I flew over and rented a place in Hawaii, in Waikiki, and then I went to work for Bob Bean of Alert Alarm. And I had met Mr. Bean, years before through different alarm association stuff that my dad used to take me to when I was in high school and college.
Mm-hmm.
So I worked for him as an installer apprentice, so I was gaining some knowledge because I've been out with people, but I'd never done it myself.
Yeah.
So I learned that before I actually started at Bay. So I had a little bit of a good head start before I went to Bay University, Class 1, Volume 1.
Okay. Were you at that point? Maybe were you more interested in sales or the operations, or were you learning all of it?
Yeah, I was more, personality is more suited for sales, but in order to to learn the whole business, I had to start with installation. So I went through installation, I installed, went through class, and then I installed for a year. I had a truck. I was living with a bunch of buddies that were all in real estate. One guy worked for a hedge fund, and another guy was a banker. And I'm coming in every day at 6 o'clock with my Bay Alarm blues on, sweaty with insulation all over me because I was working for a year. It was awesome.
Yeah.
So I'd go off and install, and I was not a great installer, although I enjoyed it. I caused a lot of damages out there. Learning how to actually get out there and deal with the customers and install systems and work, you realize that the job is not a piece of cake. I mean, these folks are out there, they're working every day in all sorts of different environments. They don't know what's behind this wall right here. And that's what you learn. You learn that, okay, when they make a mistake, they're not trying to make a mistake. It's a tough job. So I learned how to install first. So that was about a year. And then I went into service, although I was only, my service skills were marginal. I mean, I could tone out a line or find a ground fault or do something like that, but I didn't know all this. I couldn't do everything. But I was in service for about 6 months, and that primarily was riding with other people and then working, doing it. And then I went to the central station for probably the longest 10 months of my life, and you really appreciate those people's work. I mean,
Yes.
Sitting there at the computer at 3 in the morning, you have a different appreciation for what work is and what different people have to go through in their day-to-day.
Yeah. You just reminded me of something. Maybe you might have an answer, maybe not. But when I was in your central station, 1984,
Yes,
85.
I had worked in there at that time.
Okay. You were very young at that time. But that was a tough central station to work in because at that time, everyone had to stand. You didn't have seats. I think the supervisor maybe had a bench or something, but everybody was working, and I know you had receivers and things that had to be, handled, but I thought it was kind of hard on your back.
John, that was not hard for me.
Okay.
People can't believe my early Central Station stories when I tell them, the McCullough tape, the tape would come out and be, 6489, and then you'd read it and go over to the Rolodex and look for 6489 and say, oh, it's Joe's liquor store. And then you get on the phone and call the police, and it was all kind of mechanical. And
I remember you had time cards you had to punch when you made a call, and manual back originally.
All manual.
Because you were just getting, I think, into the.
It was right around that time when we computerized stuff, and I remember when that was going on, I was like, came up on the screen, which was amazing. And not on the McCullough tape.
Right.
So that was a cool time. I think that was, I don't know, sometime in the early 80s.
Yeah. So then, after that point, at what point then were you, after learning these different functions of the industry, were you then going to go into, a leadership role?
Well, that took a long time because it was about probably 6 or 8 full years of doing different positions within the company, and I worked in all the different branches. And at the time, we went as far south as Santa Barbara. We didn't have any branches in Southern California. So I worked in each one of the different branches for 6 months to a year. The idea there was to meet all of the employees and do all of that. So going into leadership, well, that actually happened in 2000 when we had a paid president at the time, and that was coming to an end. And at the time, it was like, okay, we're going to hire another paid president. And I had been backing up prior to that. I was a sales manager and a branch manager, during that 8-year period of time. So I had managed the day-to-day for a bunch of different offices.
And of course, then you had to learn the finance piece.
I had to work in finance, and that I did when I finally moved to the corporate office, probably, right around 99, maybe 2000 or so, right when this was going on. Started the corporate meaning just working on acquisitions with my dad, who at the time was in charge of that, going on acquisition calls, and then I kind of started doing that myself. And then learning just the corporate structure of everything. And then in 2000, I certainly didn't know everything I needed to know. I knew how to run the business. I mean, I knew how to run a branch. I knew how to run the place. Corporate-wise, no, but at the time, it was, okay, we're gonna hire another person, or are we just gonna, you guys, you know, think you can do it? So my brother Graham and I said, okay, well, let's give this a shot. So, not with titles, but for starting in 2000, we started running the company, the day-to-day operations of the company. And that was scary. We were both like, oh boy. Okay, but luckily we had a seasoned group of branch managers that I'd already known and worked with for years.
Sure.
And then the executive staff were all good folks that I had worked with as well. So they, you know, we relied on them to help us. And that lasted about 3 or 4 years before the board at the time said, okay, you guys are now appointed co-presidents.
Okay. Was there, how was it decided that what you were gonna do and what Graham was gonna do?
We kind of split it up on our natural abilities. You know, I handled all the, you know, the branches, sales, acquisitions, things like that, all that external stuff, and then he handled more of the internal central station process, legal, all the internal stuff. So we broke it up in that way.
Okay. And then your other brother and sister, Reed and Molly, were they involved in the Bay Alarm at some point?
Yes, well, not in Bay Alarm. Reed, Molly went into, throughout the years, we got into different businesses, real estate being one of them, just by buying different branch offices. So that was kind of we just owned it, but it wasn't a professional operation. Well, when Molly came on, we decided to make it a professional business where you're not just managing Bay Alarm stuff, we're buying other buildings and managing tenants and TIs and all this stuff that a real estate company does. So she went in there and ultimately ended up running that for many years. Many years. And in fact, today that's where Graham and Reed now work there today running that.
Okay. And then I don't want to leave out your cousin Tim. You know, along the same time, he, I guess, went through the same kind of process you did with, you know, learning about the company.
Yeah,
and so on.
he did. He went to work, he was probably 4 or 6 years younger than me, I'm not sure. But yes, he went to work, he graduated college and then went to work for a telecom company and got into that business. And then when he came, he went to work for one of our other businesses, which was a ISP at the time, internet service provider called InReach Intercom, and he went out there and worked there, and then worked in that end, and then eventually made it over to Bay Alarm.
Okay. All right. So then you're in there, and things are moving along, and you know, you're seeing the rest of the industry too, along with your own business
Right.
you have to deal with. But you know, what was you know, the Bay Alarm being such a big family-owned business? You know, other than the giant national one, what was it? Was there competition?
Sure, sure. We had, you know, our competition the way we had in each town. There's a strong local competitor, so that's our competition in each town. And then the nationals, when I started out, ADT, or to remain nameless or whatever, was really pretty strong. They had seasoned reps in each of the territories all throughout, you know, the areas that we served, and they were good, and we competed with them. And then that kind of changed over time. And then it was the local. It's always going to be your strong local provider, you know, in that town. But then, as I've said for probably 15 years now, our biggest, you know, competitor, our biggest competition was our own internal ability to get people to do what we need them to do to be successful. And that was our biggest competition, because we're not seeing the daily battles like we used to. So it's our ability to lead and manage and get folks to do things that we know that will make them successful. So that's our main competitor, is ourselves.
Okay. I'd like to go back to, you know, what threats you see on the horizon, looking at it from today. If we could kind of, I'd like to get more of that, if we could touch on that. You know, because you see it from a position of a mega-sized company. Do do you see these threats putting little guys out of business too, or?
I think there's always gonna be a spot for the local provider, because people, like this restaurant, for example, people want, they wanna deal with someone that they know, that they can come in with, talk, call with, and just kind of work with. But the bigger companies, it's a little bit more difficult to communicate with one person and to know the service tech coming in and know your sales professional, and to really get close with the people that are servicing you that you're paying. Which is the biggest goal of ours at Bay Alarm, is you need to be involved, you need to meet the customers, we want to send the same guys out. We really want to make people feel like they're getting taken care of. When they call today, we come today. Maybe it's tomorrow, but you really need to maintain that, and that's what the local providers can do better than anyone. So long as they're not on another job when that call comes in or something like that, which is the most difficult part for folks like that, because if they take a big install, well, they can't get over here, or they can't take care of the customer. So that's their issue. But I think there's always going to be a spot for the local provider. Absolutely.
Yeah. What other kind of things? You and I had the experience through watching different situations develop with the R-Box wanting to get into the business, which of course, I was a National Guardian, and I found out we were bought by one, Ameritech, later divested and sold off to Tyco. But do you see that type of stuff happening now with other businesses wanting to get a piece of the pie, so to speak?
Yes, I think that, for years as a kid, my dad used to joke about it. He's like, "Oh yeah, we went to the cocktail party and someone said, there's the banker and the real estate professional and the stockbroker and then they said, what do you do? I'm in the alarm business." And he said they used to be like, what is that? But now, being in the security business or the alarm business is something that a lot of different people are interested in. You got all the private equity people, you have all the bigger, Google putting money in ADT. You've got a whole bunch of people that are looking at the business, and what they're really looking at is the reoccurring revenue.
Sure.
Not all of them. Some of them want the data. Some of them want other things. But at the end of the day, what the money people want is the reoccurring revenue, and that has continued to grow in the industry. And as long as that grows and is consistent, and the attrition is at a stable level, then that will continue to grow, and people will continue to be interested in this business.
Yeah. Do you see, the bottom line, though, is kind of what we've already touched on. The customer service is really at the bottom. You've got to take care of the customer.
You just have to, it's really easy. You just have to do what you say you're going to do. And if people are paying you to provide them a service that they purchase from you, just provide it with a smile. And I think that could continue forever, right? And especially with us, because our main goal, we have a branch operation, not the least expensive way to run a company, but we have branches in all these different areas that allow us to get to every customer that we serve within 1 hour. And that's tough to do when you just have one super center and you're sending people out.
Yeah.
And the reason we do that is so we get close with the customers, and we're territory based, so everybody in that branch knows the customers. Mm-hmm. And I think for us, that's the key to success, is really taking care of the customer.
Yeah. On the other side, looking forward, do you see opportunities? What kind of opportunities that our industry should be looking at, or?
I think there are quite a few opportunities that are out there. I think today, if we're talking 2021, AI is a big word out there, but the intelligence that's now able to be in cameras and in some of this different equipment is finally where it was advertised. A few years ago, there wasn't.
Yeah.
But now it's finally working. And what does that mean? That means that now if we install one of these live video monitoring systems, LVRM is what we call it, and it detects a dog or a bird or a bush, and it doesn't send us a signal, that's great. But if it detects a person, then it's there. And then with that ability to do that, and then a speaker can come on and say, you need to leave the area, you're not supposed to be here. And if the person doesn't, the camera keeps with them, and then a live operator comes down and says, okay, the police are on the way. Well, that is something that's a tremendous opportunity for people, because instead of having the $6,000 a shift guard there, we can now have this camera that's up there that does the same work. It's not $6,000, but it's also not $50 a month.
Yeah,
I mean,
well, of course, right.
It's more. So opportunities like that with technology mixed with application, and then with people that figure out how to make it work and how to make money from it. There's a bunch of different opportunities like that. So the answer is, yeah, I believe that there's a lot more room to grow, and people like us, as long as you're up on everything that you need to be up on, then I think there's tremendous opportunity.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to go see that part of your business, and with the analytics in place, where you take your camera view, but you screen off certain areas,
right,
to pick up people, and watched a couple people scale a roof on one of your systems, and your voice system came over and said the police are being called, and those people ran.
Right.
I don't even know that a lot of people are even thinking about that, but that's definitely the wave is here now, obviously, with what you've got running.
It's here now. It's taken a long time. And I'm glad we didn't try to make it happen, 3 years ago, because it would have been a disaster. But now it is finally working. And that's on the high end or the top end. But as technology gets better and the prices of these things and the technology comes down a little bit, this sort of thing can be offered to regular restaurants and businesses and maybe even residences someday, as things get a little bit cheaper.
Yeah. Is there anything that you'd like to talk about where you'd like to see the industry go? I'm not going to ask you private things about Bay Alarm, that you probably are already leading it in that direction, but things that the industry could come together with and work towards accomplishing.
Well,
since we're all securing people.
Yeah, I've been involved in the association working with police departments and fire departments my whole career. But I think now we may have an opportunity to even be closer with them, because with the advent of this new technology, it's not new technology, the technology that is now working, we can have a positive effect on the ability for police to apprehend these bad guys and really make a difference. Because now, if we call, and we're calling with a description of the person, what they're doing, what's going on, with all the details, and we can speak with the police dispatcher or even the police, the person on the street, with this kind of information that they want, it can really make a dramatic effect on their ability to be successful and eliminate crime. And as we progress with that, and maybe we'll become more integrated with the police people in helping them out. Yeah, I think it's a possibility.
Yeah. Well, we've gone pretty much, I think, the length of time we had allotted. Right now, the floor is open to you. Is there any last thing that you'd like to talk about or mention that we maybe haven't covered?
Well, John, what are you going to do with the rest of your life?
Well, I've got in a couple months. It will be 5 years since I retired.
5 years.
I retired in March of 2017, and you're still working. So, you know, what are you gonna do?
That's a good question, John. I'm about your age. I'm about the same age you were when you retired, so maybe that will come sometime soon.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Well, that's interesting. You came back with that thought because nobody else did. They all had thoughts of wisdom, you know. And I say that with tongue in cheek. Everybody that has been interviewed has been awesome. But yeah, I got to say, I will say one thing. When you retire, life speeds up. The days go by so fast. And I am so busy with so much stuff to do, and I wonder, how did I ever have time to do any work? And it was 46 years, it was my 46th year when I retired, so I'm living a great time getting rid of stuff, but the most important thing is spending time with my grandchildren.
nice.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Matt?
Well, John, I
It's been
appreciate
great.
it. Yeah, it's great. Anytime. I could probably talk for like 6 hours, so.
Well, you know, at some point for fun, we'll do one that won't be posted. But we have had a lot of great times together, and especially with the travels. And, you know, every time we went somewhere, we always made an effort to go look around and see what else is, you know, in this place that we were at.
That's something that I'm not sure corporate America allows people to do today. But it's certainly something that we were able to do, so I'm grateful for that. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
All those years of exploring and working at the same time, but really having a good time, both working and having fun. So I thank you for that. And to all the other guys that we used to travel with, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And hopefully the next generation can do something, you know, can enjoy themselves and find a career and enjoy working the same way we did. So so I thank you for that, John.
And one of the biggest important pieces of that, looking back, is, and I know that you live this, you have to have your work-life balance so that you've got your sanity at the same time.
Right. Yeah, I think it's really important. And
These guys who are out there installing alarms, working themselves to death, you know.
well, it's convenient for someone like me or you to say so, because they're actually working. But to have an opportunity to do what we've been able to do in our career is something that is fantastic, and we're lucky to have it, because there are some folks that they're never going to get out of the basement or the crawl space or the warehouse, just because they didn't have the same exposure and the same opportunities to meet people and talk with people and do things that we're able to do on a daily basis. So I spend part of my day every day working with those folks to let them know, like, hey, there's other stuff out there. Like if you're installing right now, and you're having a tough time and you're working hard and you're really good at it, there's 100 other jobs within Bay Alarm you could do. So we always promote from within to any of those jobs. Current employees get the first shot. So we've had a bunch of installers that are now salespeople. Salespeople never actually go over to be installers. We haven't figured that one out. But service techs that want to go into admin. We have people that want to go into corporate work. People who want to go into central station. I mean, it's a moving, revolving door. But you got to talk with the people and say, hey, is this good? Because you recognize people's skills and that could be doing something different that they may enjoy more or make more money or whatever it is that they want to do. But if you never talk with or meet your employees or do anything like that, then you never know that stuff.
Right. Well, Matt, this has been really great, very interesting. I want to thank you for taking your time out to
Thank you, John. Thank you
sit
for all
here.
the work that you and Ralph and Charlie and the other folks from the Alarm Museum have put into this, and hopefully someone will watch some of it sometime into the future, but if not, I still want to thank you and appreciate you.
It'll be great to go back and look at this. We've all learned a lot.